Okay, so the Conservative Party seems to be facing an extinction event. Not only are they set for electoral death, they'll languish somewhere in the place where they wail and gnash teeth, currently occupied by the Lib Dems, of course, because they'll be so politically unpalatable, one would hope, that they're just the third wheel of the British political establishment. Unfortunately, we don't really have much of an opposition at the moment that would provide anything tenable on the right, and it seems like Labour are set for a default victory. But, well, with a bit of time in the Westminster bubble, maybe I can tell you how they've lost. And it's not just the MPs that have become the architects of this failure, but it's actually their aides and the think tanks. Not exactly brilliant for us, but we'll see if we can improve things. I'd just like to draw your attention to the website. If you like this kind of content, you can subscribe for £5 a month, and we won't scroll down to show you the thumbnail on this content, and you will truly have to subscribe to see for yourself, but you can watch content like this, where Parliament covered the vaccine damage hearings, and plenty of course, we can't say on YouTube anything other than MPs were spreading vaccine misinformation. So
safe and effective. Very
safe and effective.
Like a magic potion.
Yes.
It doesn't do anything bad at all.
No, exactly. Yeah, the most safe and effective medical treatment in history, and we definitely want to move on. Anyway, so let's look first at the polling, shall we? The Conservative Party are in, well, absolutely dire straits. If you can look at the 3-year average here, you can see around April of 2020, they were doing all right. They were pretty out in the lead. And the entire thing is just utterly inverted. Labour are now polling X amount of points ahead. The Conservatives, I think, are at 20% in the polls, totally.
Oh, that much?
Yeah. So they're really down in the pits. And it's not shocking considering Boris Johnson had multiple scandals. Yes, the media definitely ginned it up a bit because they're anti-Conservative party, which is surprising considering the Uniparty does all of the policies they'd want to anyway. It's not like Boris wasn't on board with the Green Dream, was it? But they were very keen to oust him. Also very keen to oust Liz Truss for a 1% tax cut, despite Rishi Sunak tanking the economy years earlier, and suddenly the banks don't react at all. But of course it would be conspiracy theory to call it a coup. Speaking of Rishi Sunak, let's look at the identity crisis. We have Conservative Home here, who are very introspective fellows within the party, going, what is the Prime Minister even standing for? It's not the best position when you've got your third Prime Minister inside a year and you don't even know what the new one's meant to be doing.
And also, why, please, Rishi, wear some trousers that actually reach your feet. It's just absurd.
To be fair, he does have to shop in the kids section. The one time he was likeable was, and even then it was fleeting, was when he was doing the campaign trail and he's given these self-prepared speeches endlessly. And he gets up on the stage and says, oh, as a politician, you go around, you shake hands, you kiss babies. And I took a photo with a couple and their young child. And I said, oh, finally, someone that makes me look tall.
Yeah.
Why are we governed by manlets?
And now it's amazing. They're not kissing babies. They're killing babies with medication. That's where we are at the moment.
Yeah, the abortion issue specifically, which we'll get on later, unfortunately. If we go to the next one, why are they failing? Well, as Matt Goodwin points out for Unheard, as we've covered endlessly on this channel, immigration has reached a record peak, despite Brexit being the main campaign box which Boris Johnson stood on. They just thought of it as a different kind of Brexit, where we thought Brexit as in gaining control of our borders and lowering immigration and lowering pressure on housing. They thought, right, great, free pass for immigration from the rest of the world. And now it's hit 504,000 net migration increase in the last year. It's highest on record. So that means, as Matt's done the numbers here, that's a city the size of Liverpool moving into Britain every year.
Crikey.
And we're wondering why the NHS can never keep pace with demand, despite its funding endlessly going up. We wonder why there's nothing in the pension pocket. We wonder why all of our hotels are full with fighting age young men who I have to go to work for then my paycheck to be taken as a tax so they can go piss it away on the JD Sports. Do you think a country is going to run like that? That might be why you might be slumping in the polls ever so slightly.
Yeah, I was just thinking, would I rather have those immigrants or Scousers? And I have to say, it is a close call.
Well, the immigrants don't nick nearly as many car tyres. You know what, the SNP...
Anyone listening who's a fan of Liverpool, I'm really sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not.
When the SNP do eventually get their independence referendum, they can just take Liverpool with them. It's fine. They can annex it. It's all right. You can fit the bill. So we go on to the next one. There is some rebellion within the Tory party, and there has been suggestions that Richard Tice has met with some Tory MPs that might have defectors to reform. But the likes of Lee Anderson, who is of course a Red Wall MP, and who, by all accounts, is one of the few, like maybe handful of half-decent MPs left. I mean, he's a good mate of Calvin's, he's a former single dad, and He just says there just needs to be a cap on asylum claims. Just a flat, hard limit. You don't let anyone into the country where they've applied from a safe country, and we can pick and choose which countries they come from. And we can just say, right, we've had our fair share. That's enough. Like we can take in plenty of Hong Kongers. Why not? They used to be under the British Empire. They're industrious. They're fleeing communism. They've got a real legitimate claim. If you're from Albania and you're a former stockbroker, which one woman and her husband was, and you just made a couple of bad bets and voted in the socialist government, I don't think I should pay for you to stay in a Premier Inn.
Did you hear about the Ukrainian couple that came over to Nottingham and then went back 3 days later to Ukraine? Because Nottingham's that shit. That is an actual true story.
I've actually got a mini story about Nottingham, funnily enough. I went to view the university. I spent 4 hours on the train getting there. I stayed there for 40 minutes because it was chucking it down with rain. Didn't even bother visiting the town and went straight back.
It's
Not worth it.
Again, we are insulting, aren't we, just bit by bit, parts of the United Kingdom.
Yeah.
As we're going. But we love you, really. That's
You're okay. We're in a bit of a
right.
story state in the country at the moment. We can fix the regional issues once we have a country again. That would be quite good, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, as we've already alluded to, but the Tory higher-ups are completely out of touch. They're not interested. So Suella Braverman put forward the concerns of the likes of Lee Anderson and said we need to ban people from coming from safe countries and claiming asylum because they're from safe countries, like Albania, who's a NATO member, who we literally give money to, and saying that, well, there's far too many people coming over in totality, so why don't we have some kind of immigration limit? Why don't we stop all of those students, for example, bringing in from Nigeria and Syria more dependents and family members than actual students? Why don't we just stop that? And Rishi Sunak went, no thanks. Nope. So you can pretend on the campaign trail to give a damn about grooming gangs or the cost of housing all you like, but you see a systemic unwillingness to address the actual problem. And as we were saying off air, how many times can you put every single government department down to the Hanlon's razor incompetence when they all seem to be working in concert to conduct a controlled demolition of prosperity and security in the country?
They are literally destroying the country. And it's been happening. I think I said this the last time I was on, the first time I was on, that this has been happening for, before Tony Blair kind of accelerated it.
He was the apotheosis.
Yeah, exactly, apotheosis. And now they're just taking the piss. They're just literally going, oh, well, it was really bad, but I tell you what, let's just bring some more people in, because it's almost like they're doubling down. It's like is it the sort of sunk cost fallacy? Sunk, and actually a very appropriate phrase.
Nearly Sunak, yes.
Sunak policy, because the country is literally sinking under the numbers, and it's so disgraceful that that people's opportunities, especially young people like yourself, because you're 24, my darling, you're a little spring chicken compared to me, and it makes me furious that people's opportunities are being taken because of the not incompetence, the deliberate multiculturalism that's been propagated for the last how many years.
It was cultural eradication, and they keep talking about sustainability. The numbers aren't very sustainable. And then the ultimate mask-off moment, I think, is when they turn around and say, build more houses, build more houses, build more houses. It's not immigration. And then, did you see Michael Gove got rid of house building targets this week?
God.
Right, so they just want you poor and renting forever.
Yeah.
Because I won't be able to afford anything. See my first podcast with Callum on exactly why immigration destroys the housing market in the UK.
What happened, by the way, to the story about Michael Gove? Do you notice there was a story last year?
Which
Looking
one was
at me
this?
slightly nervously. Well, there was a story about certain things that he likes to get up to. I'm going to be very careful here for legal reasons.
Was it the mountain of recreationals in Scarface by any chance?
Yeah, exactly. It was a little bit of the Peruvian marching powder that he likes, and also the company of shall we say certain people in nightclubs.
Well,
that disappeared.
I can
disappeared. That story.
neither confirm nor deny that I have seen Michael Gove partying in a gay nightclub in Manchester with Liz Truss at the Tory Party conference, but I'm sure there was nothing to that. Please don't sue us.
Please don't. But honestly, Michael, what the level of our politics, it just depresses
He's
the fuck
failed
out of me.
upwards endlessly. Like he sabotaged the education system.
Yeah.
And then clearly knows where the bodies are buried because then he stabbed Boris Johnson in the back for Theresa May. Mm-hmm. And then now he's been in cabinet multiple times despite clearly being a Machiavellian. Not loads of great fun. Speaking of ruinous
and he's kissed so
politicians-
much arse, his lips, they're in a permanent kiss arse.
Are you trying to get us back into a lawsuit scenario?
Yeah. Sorry, everyone.
Speaking of terrible politicians who have been in cabinet, this is basically causing an exodus from the Tory party. If we go to the next one, please. Sajid Javid's resigned, so there's some good news. He's not going to be standing as an MP next time. He's still sitting in the Commons for now, but when in 1 or 2 years we get the next general election, he's not going to be going again because Uncle Fester here has held every single position in cabinet possible and buggered them all up. So, and he must have gotten enough kickbacks from Moderna, I'm sure. So if we can just go to the next one. This is Rishi Sunak congratulating Sajid Javid on his hard work. He's not dead, Rishi. And then it ends with, "May the force be with you." Now, when you insulted him as looking like a child, he didn't necessarily have to act like one. And this is coming from a man who has a series running on the website for premium subscribers about comic books. So even I was embarrassed by this. And look, you can like things like Star Wars and that's fine. You can't like the terrible new ones. If we go to the next one, which one were they referring to? Oh, it's the shit Disney ones. Look at this photo, please. This is who we're governed by. That's who locked you up and was going to take away your job if you were a healthcare worker who did not have the most safe and effective medical treatment ever in existence. This was a man who crashed the economy and installed himself with the assistance of the financial sector when he was roundly repudiated by the Tory base multiple times. And these are the clowns that are championing Disney's latest cultural product.
Bankrupt you, I will. I mean, bloody hell! And is that the one with Jar Jar Binks? Sorry, I only like the original.
They were the ones in the early 90s, the Jar Jar Binks ones.
Jar Jar Binks, what a prick he was.
Funnily enough, that's quite an apt comparator because he accidentally led to the rise of the Emperor by being rather naive. He gave him all the power in the world. Liz Truss does have a look of Jar Jar Binks about her, doesn't she?
She does have a bit of a Binks.
Yeah.
Binks look about her.
Notably competent politician Jar Jar Binks and Liz Truss.
Yeah.
If we go on to the next one, please. Sajid Javid, again, is a typical Tory because he's just the one saying...
Has he got a beard there? Or am I getting short-sighted?
Yeah, he does, yes. I'm not going to make the joke.
It looks like he's upside down.
Someone dropped an egg on the carpet.
The right way around. It's Yul Brynner from King and I. Bloody hell.
It's descending into anarchy. I love it. Basically, as you can see here, he's got the typical attitude of, we need to build more houses endlessly. And you wonder why you're roundly repudiated by the base of young Conservatives who can't get a house and older Conservatives who realise that their high streets and culture has been utterly eradicated and is changing around them. So, again, typical Tory establishment waning away. If we go to the next one, please. Do you remember when Nigel Farage talked about the census data? And my critique of him is he says white here. What he really should say is English, because it doesn't matter if you're white as in Romanian, Polish, things like that, because that's actual cultural change.
Yes.
What he means is minority English. Sajid Javid just says, so what? So he's rather apathetic about our cultural eradication. Again, one of the reasons why the Tories are roundly despised, including by me, who went to their recent conference and noticed the unbelievable amount of cope on display. Oh, they all know they're going to lose. It's just who is now the question. If we go on to the next one, Farage decides to have the last laugh of when Javid announced he was resigning. Farage just went, so what?
Yeah.
Good man, Nigel.
Well done, Nigel.
I'd like to see that kind
now
of energy
get back
behind...
into politics and sort the fucking shit out.
It would
Stop
be nice
talking about it.
It would be nice to see that energy behind the podium, but there we go. Yeah, if we go on to the next one, also there's Dehenna Davidson's resigning. And nothing of value was lost.
Oh God, she was on GB News for a bit, wasn't she?
Yes, she was. Yeah, she's a 2019 Intake MP who's a member of Conservatives for LGBTQ+ and does TikTok.
Right.
So we've been elite captured by. Oh, also her some little anecdote. I believe he was a councillor. I don't want to get sued here again.
Yeah.
So I could be wrong. Look into it. But when she was about 20 odd, she married a 60-year-old man who then gave her a leg up into politics. Yes.
Gave her a leg up, over or up. Well, both.
Naughty.
Naughty.
And then she ran for MP, and when she won the race, she divorced him.
Okay.
Just saying. Very meritocratic industry here in the UK. If we can just go to the next one,
I could sing a bit of Gold Digger by Kanye West, but I'll refrain.
Yeah,
because then we're into a whole other
given Kanye's recent opinions, we will not touch that minefield. No. The reason I've brought up this segment is because, having just mentioned Dehenna Davidson, she seems to be a flashpoint example of why the incompetent intake of current MPs are being led by the nose by their 20-something know-nothing staffers who are hired straight out of university and changing the face of the Tory party, both politically and, strangely, demographically. It's not like demographics is destiny, but back when the Tory party used to be a really old boys club and that, it's definitely not the same anymore. It seems to be a feminist cabal, which is pretty surprising. And as I said to you off the podcast about our mutual favourite politician, Steve Baker, who unfollowed me because of this, we were talking about how young Conservatives here are very upset with politicians. But don't worry, we have the experts, the researchers to come in and tell us we're wrong and we're actually a minority of bigoted fascists. Let's go over to Substack. David Jeffrey, he says the kids aren't alt-right and that Farage is alt-right. Okay, bugger off, because first of all, alt-right means white nationalist, and Nigel Farage is not a white nationalist, neither am I, for liking him. But he did some data breakdowns, shall we? In Meet Britain's Radical New Right, the unheard piece that we covered in that segment, Will Lloyd experienced/endured the Reasoned Student Summit in, where else, London. Well done to Jess Gill for putting that on, by the way. His coverage of the event makes for depressing reading for anyone concerned with the future of British conservatism. He describes angry young men, for all they seem to be men. They do all seem to be men, rather. They weren't. The person questioning Steve Baker about sponsoring black-only reading hours was a girl called Elizabeth. So he got that one wrong, of course, but tar everyone on the same brush, I suppose. Eager for a hard-edged, nasty, and nativist form of politics. I believe that Will Lloyd called it conservatism as hay fever, as in you are so allergic to the left that you're sneezing violently against it. It's like, well, I have been... some physically, me metaphorically, kicked repeatedly over and over by the leftist mob who destroy everything I love. So apologies if I swing back once in a while. So he decided to look at the British election study data. So we can just scroll down to the graphs, please, John. Graph 1. Young people today don't have enough respect for traditional British values. So this was the proposition. And this is meant to be an authoritarianism scale. As you can see, the 18 to 25 bar chart line is the lowest here. But then some of these are the questions that he asked. For some crimes, the death penalty is the most appropriate sentence, so they were against that, even though 58% of the British public are for that for convicted terrorism suspects, well, perpetrators, like the Lee Rigby killers. I don't see no problem with hanging the Lee Rigby killers in public. Schools should teach children to obey authority. Bit mixed on that one. Censorship of films and magazines is necessary to uphold moral standards. I mean... depends which, because I'm kind of okay with taking all the drag queen stuff off air, which is on every bloody channel at this point. And people who break the law should be given stiffer sentences. And they were against that.
Wow.
So the Tory party, again, are led by a bunch of 18 to 25-year-olds who are very out of touch with what the British public want. Graph 2. They want more equality along racial, gender and sexuality lines. Because as you can see, the bar graph there for the big thick red line is pretty much the lowest for ethnic minorities, women and gays and lesbians. And they say attempts to give equal opportunities. So that's the government intervening to create equity among these identity groups rather than just repealing legislation which is actively in the way. And we see this with many government departments saying white men need not apply at the BBC and MI5 and the like. Again, led by a bunch of left-wing 18 to 25-year-olds. Graph 3. They want more mass immigration. Lovely. Immigration is good for the UK's culture and economy. They're top of the line there. So they're just pricing themselves out of the housing market, I guess. Graph number 4. They're very managerial by instinct. They're the least populist out of everyone. Now, of course, what was it some Iranian gentleman said? The masses are retarded, so democracy can be retarded. Occasionally true, as we see with the mass compliance of lockdowns, for example.
Yeah.
But when you're saying that we should basically appoint ourselves the political class and you've got a bunch of left-wing opinions, you're very much out of lockstep with the far-right British public who just don't want tons of Albanian men coming over on dinghies.
Yeah, without their wives and kids as well. Where are all these wives and children who are fleeing
Do you know what the actual
terrible places?
Do you know what the actual stat of breakdown by gender is?
What is it?
It's directly 95% according to the Home Office is men.
95%, and yet people are still going, I'm sure there's nothing untoward going on. It's just so bizarre. But also, you know, the thing about the young people, you know, I agree about the 18 to 24-year-olds, this sort of woke
vanguard.
Yeah, vanguard. But then what about the cucks? What about the soy boys, who are older politicians who aren't saying piss off?
Yeah.
Not
the testicleless careerists.
Yeah, precisely, yeah. Like, there's no cojones. Just to fucking do something about it.
Yep.
They just let it be taken over. I mean, it was. Do you think it's because they're thinking, oh, they're good with technology? These young people, yes, they'll know how to put. You know,
they'll definitely part of it.
They'll know how to do stuff.
Yes.
So they're almost like, oh no, we'll let them get on with it because they know best.
It is also complacency because they're setting themselves up for thinking, okay, well, I'm set for life with the business deals I've got after this, with the connections I've made, with the second job I'm doing. I've got a mortgage to pay for. I've got kids to pay for.
Yeah.
And these people who are perpetually young, they've had their adolescence elongated by university, who will just rent a flat in SW1 and go doing extracurriculars and going out clubbing every night. Well, they're just an eternally rootless underclass of political ambition that I can operate off the back of, I can put myself a tidy little nest egg away, and when it comes time to lose an election, well, it's all right, I'll be gone, they'll be out of a job, they can't blame me, and they can just float off into the ether and keep doing partying and things like that.
Yeah.
There's,
And just keep relying on the state.
yeah,
The state's getting bigger and bigger, isn't it? And
they're barnacles of the Westminster bubble. That's probably the best way to put it.
yeah.
Yeah. Number 5, yep, they're just boilerplate libertarians. So
Yeah.
that's sort of top. So we're talking off air about Dan Hannan and Steve Baker, who consider himself a man of the free market liberal left in the Tory party.
Mm.
Same sort of people.
What a mixture.
Graph 6, they're significantly more gay. Right.
What's that graph there?
They're
The flatlining one.
the flat.
Flat one.
Yeah, that's the libertarian or authoritarian placement, I believe. We go down,
Yeah.
John, slightly.
Yeah.
It's the next one. There we go. Sexuality one, please.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh,
so
this
significant
sexuality.
spike. Yeah. So again, okay, should be a private matter. However, if you're getting a lot of people involved in politics who will not have have families by instinct, then that does cause a problem for a Conservative Party who are meant to be investing in the next generation, rather than just focusing on the material prosperity of the present, so they can import a perpetual underclass to do cheap labour for them.
Yeah.
It's not great optically when the entire point of a Burkean covenant is between you, your ancestors, and the next generation, which you're responsible for propagating.
Yeah.
And then graph 7, just to really depress you, they really hate Farage. Right, so they're definitely not going to be Reform UK voters in the future, at least the people that he decided to talk to, because he's picking out the Reason Summit as a group of extremists that aren't representative of the Tory party. But I wonder who he did actually interview. Perhaps it was some of the parliamentary staffers, who have public Twitter accounts, by the way. So we come to the first one. This is one woman. I do believe she works for Dehenna Davidson, because she is in Dehenna Davidson's Twitter banner, I think, and she also is friends with Dehenna Davidson's other staffer. So this one fellow decided to come up to Liz Truss and have a chat with her. While she was in a coffee shop. Okay, former MP, former cabinet minister, former still MP, former prime minister. That was quick, wasn't it? If we just scroll up slightly, John, so we can read a. God, this is so effing weird. And she's basically saying, why are you harassing this woman? It's a private life in a coffee shop. Sorry, if you get into politics as a public-facing official, and you've buggered up the country in many respects with Ukraine policy, with voting for lockdown, with being a bit of a wishy-washy prime minister who I don't think should have been out on her ear that quick, but nonetheless, the public have a right to question you if they pay your salary.
Yeah.
Why are you so protectionist against this?
Yeah. Very, 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 very strange. God, what a shit show.
Yeah. If we go on to the next one.
Nobody impresses me anymore. I have to say, even though you probably won't like this, I mean, even Farage, Tice and Oakeshott were out in Australia when Matt Hancock was in the. Sorry, I can't even say his name without a bit of bile coming up in my mouth. When he was in Celebrity, I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. So I'm more skeptical. I'm very skeptical.
That's fair.
I don't know what your viewers might think about that, but
the fact that Oakeshott interviewed him for the Crypto podcast is reprehensible.
Yes. They should have arrested him, pinned him to the ground.
I agree.
Citizen's arrest.
The amount of people in nursing homes whose excess deaths he led to is...
Oh, yeah. Just unconscionable.
Yet, for some reason, he spends a couple of weeks in the jungle eating kangaroo testicles and suddenly he comes third in the public mind, and it just shows you how quickly people can be brainwashed.
Yeah.
However, the question I have to ask is, who else is there? I don't think there is any other figure in public life who can lead a counter-movement at this point than Nigel. And if he'd like to pass it on to a successor after he's established power, would be utterly delighted.
Yeah.
But who else can galvanise it?
Yeah.
That's the really crap position we're in the UK.
No, I agree. And as long as the galvanisation involves the likes of people like us who are not part of the establishment.
Yes.
That's the bit I'm wary about, is because like Tice and if you've had a foot for too long in the establishment, then you aren't able to see through things like we do.
Well, hopefully as well, given that one of our staff members has had a recent chat with Richard Tice, and if you pay for the website, you'll be able to watch that soon enough. Maybe we may be able to win them round with some of our more robust, less establishment ideas.
Yeah, and stop supporting Zelensky. Stop just constantly saying...
Yeah, stop putting money into the back pockets of FTX and Democrats would be fantastic, considering we're all bloody freezing to death.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it'd be great, yeah. And also
nice.
have trials for all the medics who pushed a certain...
The lockdowns, yeah.
Just the
lockdowns, yeah.
And the Britney Spears.
Yes, yeah,
That's
definitely.
code, by the way, for something else.
Yes. Here's another staffer, by the way, former Hannah Davidson staffer. When Liz Truss appointed straight white men to her cabinet, she was retweeting something very supportive, also retweeting things scaremongering about Roe v. Wade. And one of her tweets here was, poor straight white men elected in 2019 with no experience in the department, let alone cabinet role, for being overlooked for a job that their only qualification is feeling entitled. This is about another Conservative MP, by the way, saying that I felt like I was overlooked for a cabinet role. But again, obsessed with identity despite working for the Conservative Party.
Yeah.
So affirmative action within cabinet among staffers. Not a great look. We can go to the next one, please. This was a guy that, funnily enough, I used to work with in an environmental group. And he decided to say that Kamala Harris's appointment, when Joe Biden said, this morning little girls woke up across the nation, especially capital B Black and capital B Brown, who feel so overlooked and undervalued in society, potentially see themselves in a new way as the stuff of presidents and vice presidents, because Joe Biden's black, of course. And he said this is powerful stuff. For all Kamala's policy faults, this is supremely important and often overlooked. The reason I've highlighted this, right, he's a senior communications officer for the House of Commons and works with Dominic Raab, who was Deputy Prime Minister.
Wow.
I think he's currently Justice Secretary as well.
Yeah.
So, identity-obsessed leftists,
yeah.
staffing the Conservative Party, 20-something know-nothings, who are, by the way, writing speeches and persuading MPs on how to vote and what issues to push after. You wonder why the Overton window is massively shifting leftward here.
Yes, yeah.
If we go on to the next one, I got into a spat with him about this, and he called me a misogynist for saying that Kamala Harris slept her way to the top, when I literally cited an article by former San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown saying, yeah, I shagged her while I was married and I gave her a start in California politics.
Is that about Kamala Harris?
Yes.
He always reminds me of Woody Woodpecker. Yeah. You know, when she talks, I'm like, oh, how can you be anywhere near the White House, you crazy loon?
All of her speeches as well are predictive text. It's like the passage of time, and we're thinking about time and how it passes and the passage of time.
When she was talking to kids about going to the moon, she's like, "Oh, apparently the moon's like really amazing.
It's made of cheese.
Cheese.
I can pair it with my box wine."
I mean, she's just off her rocker.
Loop de loop.
Yeah, loop de loop.
And goes to the next one as well. We also have the female Tom Harwood. Now, I believe she advises Greg Smith, and anyone who is in sort of like conservative politics on Twitter, lots of people follow this girl, Bella Wallersteiner, and she is like a bad take machine. It's embarrassing. Again, 20-something know-nothings, rent only, advising our politicians. She said, with Labour going for a stricter approach on immigration, there's definitely space for a fiscally conservative, socially liberal party in British politics. One that is prepared to carry out the necessary supply-side tax reforms, liberalise planning, more immigration and cut tax. Right, more immigration, and cut tax. So, how are you going to pay for all the public services that the immigrants keep using? Liberalise planning, so we're going to concrete over the entire countryside to make the entire of the UK mega city one for a bunch of economic chances. Do you think there might be a reason why the budget is going bust when cities the size of Liverpool every year arrive and need housing and healthcare at the immediate point of access? No? Okay, love. I wouldn't put you in charge of my personal budget, let alone the bloody country's. Just go to the next. She deleted this tweet.
Oh.
Fantastic. Of course she did. Well, she almost got it. She almost started talking about the problem with housing was demand. If we go to the next one, she just says, well, housing is basically a right. As a 27-year-old professional living and working in London, I'm deeply uncomfortable to be a member of a party which appears to have turned its back on Mrs. Thatcher's promise of creating a home-owning democracy. Bear in mind, Margaret Thatcher did once say that Tony Blair was the best part of her legacy, and he was the cause of all the immigration reforms. So, again, problem comes within the Tory party. So if you go on to the next one, she almost gets it, and then she just flops. There's no public appetite for major reforms required to make Brexit work, more immigration, liberalised planning, tax cuts. To her credit, Truss tried to do this and Tory polls plunged. Johnsonian cakeist Brexit was always a fantasy, so it's sensible to seek closer ties with the EU. Seditionist fifth columnists working for our MPs, trying to get us back involved with the EU bureaucracy and constantly upping immigration to immiserate us.
And there's a Ukraine flag in her bio.
That's a fantastic point.
Surprised there isn't a blue heart and a rainbow.
I'm on board with the current thing. Yay.
Yay, Bella Wallensteiner. Is that even a real name?
God
Sounds
knows.
Weird.
Speaking of sounding weird, then we have the actual Tom Harwood, who I just thought I'd finish on because this is the most egregious tweet I've probably ever read. In the real world, the only way to reduce rent costs is to cut demand or increase supply. Hold on. I like how he's sounding here. Okay. So we either institute a state sacrifice of the firstborn.
Sorry? Run that by me again.
So we either institute a state sacrifice of the firstborn, or maybe we just think about building more houses. So literally, kill your baby before we lower immigration.
So let's be Mao's China. Essentially. In fact, no, full stop. Let's just be Mao's China.
Yeah.
That boy is an alien-faced fascist.
Well, I'm not surprised
Can't stand him.
that antinatalism is coming from a genetic cul-de-sac.
Oh
but
my God.
I'd rather that the people that didn't have an investment in the future, policy-wise,
Yeah.
were not running the Conservative Party. But I hope this has provided a little bit of insight as to why it's been so led astray. And the argument is just, moral of the story, stop hiring 20-year-old know-nothings who are left of centre and bereft of sense to run your campaigns. I suppose we must await the creation of a tenable opposition to kick them all out, shall we?
Thanks for watching this segment from the podcast Lotus Eaters. I hope you're all having a very Merry Christmas. If you're interested in finding more premium content, you can find that on our website for a minimum of £5 per month. We've also got a new merch store that's very exciting, full of t-shirts and hoodies and mugs and all sorts that you can fit right in time for Christmas. So if you'd like to find out more updates and developments from us, you can follow us over at Getter at lotuseaters_com. Thank you very much. See you again.